Gooi julle hande in die lug vir Rassie!
Get up again. Get up from the start. Get in their faces. Show for 40 minutes. You show body language.
Rassie Erasmus does not do things the conventional way. He released a 1-hour video dissecting referee decisions and got a worldwide ban from the touchline for it. He dressed as a water carrier during the Lions series to get around that ban and coached his team through a ball boy. He gave his players his personal phone number on day one and told them to call him if they had a problem. He has cried in public after test matches, laughed in post-match press conferences when the rugby world expected solemnity, and conducted his coaching career with a transparency and an emotional directness that the sport was not accustomed to, and that has made him, by the consensus of the rugby world, the most effective test coach of his generation. He is 53 years old. He has coached South Africa to 2 consecutive Rugby World Cup titles, the first nation in history to win back-to-back in the professional era, and is targeting a third in 2027 that would make the Springboks the most successful Rugby World Cup dynasty the sport has ever seen. He played 42 tests for South Africa as a flanker, was part of the Nick Mallet-era team that set a world record of 17 consecutive test wins in 1997 and 1998, and understands from both sides of the coaching relationship what test match rugby at the highest level actually requires. He has spoken publicly about players throughout his coaching career with more honesty and more specific detail than most coaches are comfortable providing. He has praised individuals by name, defended them publicly when the media turned on them, and built selection decisions around loyalty to specific players that he has been willing to explain and justify. Across interviews, press conferences, and social media posts, including the now famous 1-hour video, the picture of the players he values most has become visible. These are the 5 Springbok players that Rassie Erasmus has valued above all others. Not a list he has ever published in this form. A list assembled from what his actions and his words have revealed consistently over 8 years of coaching the Springboks. Siya Kolisi, the decision that defined everything. The most consequential single decision of Rassie Erasmus's coaching career was made in June 2018, 2 months after he took the job. He named Siya Kolisi as Springbok captain, the first black captain in the history of South African rugby. The decision came not from political pressure, not from external expectation, but from Erasmus's direct reading of what Kolisi brought to a team environment and what South African rugby needed in that specific moment. He had known Kolisi since Kolisi was 18 years old, arriving at the Western Province Rugby Institute in Stellenbosch from the township of Zwide outside Port Elizabeth. Erasmus had scouted him. He had watched him develop across years of provincial rugby, watched how teammates responded to him, watched how he communicated and how he led and how he managed himself under pressure. By the time Erasmus took the Springbok coaching role, the decision about the captaincy was not a difficult one. It was the obvious one. He has described Kolisi publicly with consistent language across 8 years. Humble is the word he returns to most often. Humble and respected, and someone who delivers when it counts. In August 2026, after the Springboks won in Buenos Aires against Argentina, Erasmus said directly, "Siya always delivers when it counts." Injury hardened was the phrase the rugby press used to describe Erasmus's confidence in Kolisi, a player who has dealt with injuries, recovery, absence, and return, and who Erasmus has consistently selected and defended regardless of the noise around each comeback. The relationship between coach and captain has been described by Kolisi himself as a brotherhood. In a March 2026 video, Kolisi said Erasmus speaks about who we are as people, not just about what we do on the rugby field. The partnership they built from 2018 produced 3 World Cup final appearances in 4 years, 2019 1, 2023 1, the sequence that changed the sport's understanding of what sustained excellence at test level looked like. Kolisi is not simply Erasmus's favorite player, he is the living expression of what Erasmus believes rugby is for. And everything that Erasmus has built since 2018 has been organized around the specific leadership that Kolisi provides. Eben Etzebeth, the irreplaceable. Every coaching staff in World Rugby has a vocabulary for describing what happens to their set piece when Eben Etzebeth is unavailable. It involves words like reduced, compromised, managed, and other terms that coaches use when they are trying not to say outright that they cannot replace someone. Erasmus uses a different word. He uses irreplaceable, and has done so publicly on the record in multiple contexts. His management of Etzebeth across the past year illustrates the specific regard in which he holds him. When Etzebeth returned from a significant concussion absence, Erasmus explained his bench selection in precise terms. Ben Jason Dixon will go on for Eben, and Cobus Wiese will go on for Lude, because Eben is coming back from concussion and a long time out, and he won't last 80 minutes, so when he gets tired, he will be replaced by Ben Jason at lock 4. As long as they are productive and deliver on the field, we want to get maximum minutes out of them. This is the language of a coach managing a player he considers essential, but whom he is also protecting, threading the needle between getting what Etzebeth provides and not burning him out in a context where he is not yet at full capacity. The care with which Erasmus manages Etzebeth's return from injury says as much as the words he uses to describe him. The 141 test caps, the most in Springbok history, exist because Erasmus and the selection panels before and alongside him have consistently found Etzebeth indispensable. A rating from Planet Rugby in 2025 called him irreplaceable in the context of the nation's championship squad, noting that no other player in the squad fulfills the combination of line-out dominance, scrummaging contribution, and physical impact that Etzebeth provides across 80 minutes. Erasmus has been saying the same thing in various forms since 2018. He is the player around whom the Springbok forward pack is built. He is the standard bearer for the physicality that the Erasmus-era Springboks have made their identity, and he is, by the consistent evidence of Erasmus's selection decisions and public comments, the player that the coach trusts most in the part of the game that his system depends on most. Handré Pollard, the architect in the storm. Handré Pollard was voted off the Springbok team at one point during the 2023 Rugby World Cup cycle, not by Erasmus, by a segment of South African rugby supporters who had decided that his form at fly half was insufficient for the demands of the tournament and that a replacement should be found. The debate was genuine and the pressure was real, and Erasmus's response to it was one of the clearest expressions of his confidence in a specific player that his coaching career has produced. He kept Pollard. He said Pollard was his man. He built the 2023 World Cup campaign around Pollard at 10 with the same strategic commitment he had applied in 2019, when Pollard became the highest individual scorer in a World Cup final in Springbok history, 22 points against England in the victory in Yokohama. In 2023, he started every knockout game. He kicked goals at the moments when the World Cup was in the balance. South Africa won. The story of what Pollard has survived to reach those moments is the full story of why Erasmus's loyalty to him is not stubbornness, but judgment. In November 2021, Pollard suffered a ruptured ACL playing for Montpellier in France. The recovery from ACL reconstruction for a professional rugby player, particularly a kicker whose profession requires the precise biomechanical function of the joint, is a process that produces varying outcomes. Pollard came back. He came back to the Springbok starting lineup. He came back to 2 consecutive World Cup finals and delivered when both of them were on the line. Erasmus's relationship with Pollard mirrors in certain respects his relationship with Kolisi, a player he identified early, committed to publicly when the pressure was against them, and who vindicated that commitment on the biggest stages the sport offers. In the 2019 World Cup, Pollard and Kolisi are the 2 names most directly associated with the Springbok victory. In 2023, they are there again. That consistency is not accidental. It is the product of a coach who knows exactly who he trusts when the tournament is real. Faf de Klerk, the chaos engine. There is a specific kind of rugby player that coaches either love entirely or cannot manage at all, and the distinction usually comes down to whether the coach understands what that player is doing and trusts it to work within the system. Faf de Klerk is that kind of player. He is a scrum half who operates with a pace and a directness and an absolute refusal to slow the game down that looks, to the uninitiated, like chaos. And that looks, to Rassie Erasmus, like exactly what his team needs. Erasmus named de Klerk publicly in the famous 1-hour referees video, the October 2021 video that cost him the touchline ban, tagging him alongside Kolisi, Etzebeth, Pollard, and others as one of the players he was standing behind through the Lions series controversy. The inclusion was not accidental. De Klerk is not the most capped player in Erasmus's Springbok teams, nor the player who generates the most media discussion. He is the player who makes the Springbok attack tick at the speed Erasmus wants it to tick at, and whose relationship with Erasmus dates to the period when Erasmus was coaching at the Stormers and de Klerk was developing in the system. He has described de Klerk in terms that coaches usually reserve for players whose contribution cannot be quantified in the traditional statistics. The line breaks, the tries, the meters gained. He talks about de Klerk's ability to put the game at the tempo the Springboks need to manage the forward momentum and convert it into attacking opportunity with a specific pace that defenses have not found a reliable system for containing. De Klerk is not fast in the way that a wing is fast. He is fast in the way that a decision made before anyone else has processed the information is fast. He is ahead of the game, always, which is the most specific thing that can be said about a Rugby 9. In the 2019 World Cup final against England, de Klerk produced what many observers called the performance of his career, controlling the pace of a test match against one of the most formidable defensive structures in world rugby and converting Springbok possession into points with a consistency that the final scoreboard, 32-12, barely communicates. The scoreline is a blowout. The way de Klerk managed the game to produce that scoreline is what Erasmus sees when he looks at his scrum half. Pieter-Steph du Toit, the World Player of the Year. The sport keeps overlooking the 2019 World Rugby Player of the Year award went to Pieter-Steph du Toit, which means the governing body of the global game determined that he was the best rugby player on earth in the year South Africa won the World Cup. He was 31 years old. He had been capped for South Africa since 2013. He played in a position, flanker and lock, that does not generate the highlight reels of a wing or the recognition of a captain. Erasmus has described du Toit with a specific kind of admiration that goes beyond tactical appreciation. He sees in du Toit the embodiment of the Springbok forward ideal, physical, intelligent, relentless, capable of operating effectively in multiple forward roles, willing to do the unspectacular work that the Springbok system requires at breakdown and set piece without needing the credit that other players in more visible positions accumulate. Du Toit has had injury problems that have tested Erasmus's patience with selection cycles, and Erasmus has consistently managed those problems in the same way he manages Etzebeth's concussion history, with care, with a longer view, with an explicit willingness to wait for the player to return rather than replace him with someone who cannot do what he does. In August 2025, he was released from the Springbok squad with a Nations Championship injury. Erasmus's response was to name a replacement and note that du Toit would return when his body allowed it, with the specific expectation that he would return. The World Player of the Year award in 2019 is the clearest external validation of what Erasmus has been saying about du Toit since he took the Springbok job. The award says, in the year the best rugby team on earth won the World Cup, this man was the best rugby player on earth. Erasmus has structured his selection decisions accordingly ever since. The pattern behind the five. Looking at these five players together, the pattern in Erasmus's preferences becomes visible. None of them are players he inherited and adapted to. All of them are players he committed to early and has defended publicly. Through the periods when public and media opinion turned against them, Kolisi was given the captaincy when it was not universally expected. Pollard was kept in the starting team through a debate that was loud and specific. Etzebeth's injury management has been explained game by game in public. De Klerk's selection has been built into the system architecture rather than responding to form. Du Toit's position has been held open across multiple injury absences that would have prompted other coaches to move on. What Erasmus values across all five of these players is the specific quality he identified in each of them before the pressure arrived, and his willingness to maintain that judgment when the pressure arrived and the easier path was to change his mind. He is a coach who trusts his own reading of a player over the reading of the rugby media, the punditry class, and the supporters who generate the noise around selection decisions. He has been right more often than he has been wrong. 2 World Cup titles, an unprecedented third in sight. The 5 players he has valued most have been there for both of them and are being managed toward the third. That is the record. The names on it are the answer to the question.